I typically spend a full day. I can do this introduction, and basically with audience interaction, it usually takes us a day to cover just this one webinar. Obviously, we're going to do it in an hour, so I'm not going into as much depth. Subsequent sessions, what we're going to do with the help of TAD and CPE Think is we want to make sure we're going into a little bit more detail. Again, each one of the 8 pillars could in itself be a full day seminar or webinar. Again, we'll try to break it down a little. So let's talk about some specific examples, things you can do. And my personal bias in terms of growth is growing through operational efficiency and by expanding your service offerings. So one of the things I'm going to ask, this is probably unusual, but as a presenter, I like to present things that my audience deeply cares about. So what I'm going to do, and we'll work out logistics with Tad, but I'd like people to share in the comments or in the feedback, what are the areas, as we go through the 8 pillars, which of the pillars would you like to learn more about? Which of the tools, if I've mentioned something you're interested in, let us know so that we can cover those in greater detail and perhaps give them a presentation of their own. Now, for the record, I'm a consultant and advisor. I primarily work with bookkeepers and accountants. I have worked with accounting firms across North America, so just because I'm Canadian, the language of the cloud is very common. There's very little difference between the two, other than in the US there's a lot more variety of services than what we have in Canada. So what I do is I only talk about products and services that I have in some way personally touched, dealt with, explored, reviewed. So nothing makes it into this presentation unless I've actually personally used it, whether that's for my accounting firm of the past or the clients that I'm working with at the moment. I should also mention that everything that we talk about, if you call me and ask me what's the best something, my answer is always it depends. I won't give an answer, it's like tax planning or estate planning. You won't give an answer until you've asked some very specific questions. So the right answer, what's the best something, it depends on your unique circumstances. So I would suggest looking at these materials as a starting point and then moving forward from there. So before we get into it, today is about working on, not in your business. I will comment that this title, this is not mine specifically. I first recall reading about it in Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited. If you haven't read it, he's got one specifically for accountants. I personally believe that the E-Myth or the series is a must-read for anyone in business. So when I worked with clients, members of the general public, I asked them, required that they read E-Myth Revisited. When I work with bookkeepers and accountants, I asked that they read E-Myth for accountants. Basically, he puts a lot of emphasis on the importance of systems and processes, working on your business, not in it. So some of the examples just up front, because this is kind of what we're going to be talking about, working on your business, it's the non-chargeable, non-billable stuff that we all generally put off. Working in your business is the day-to-day stuff where you get paid to do it. And again, unfortunately, I would argue working on your business probably generates 10, 20 times the results working in your business will. But it's one of those, working on your business is a long-term thing, so we don't see immediate results. Therefore, human nature, we put it off. So some of the things you should be doing right now to make sure your firm is growing is look at a marketing plan. Have specific goals. Who do you want to reach? How do you want to reach them? Take some time to develop systems and processes. Choose the right tools to facilitate your growth. And my personal bias is creating new services to offer to existing customers. It's a lot cheaper and easier to build on the current relationships you have than it is to go out and find new clients continuously. And again, that is a little bit of a niche. We're accountants. We have special skills. A lot of times we're guilty. I've been there. I've done that. We're guilty of giving our best services away because we don't see that there's value in it. For example, we might have a little cash flow conversation with a client, 15 minutes on the phone. We hang up, think nothing of it. The client, meanwhile, turns around, implements that change in their business, and they think we're brilliant, but we've forgotten and we haven't billed them for either the time or the outcome. Strategic thinking, this should be internal, focused on where your company is going. It can also include spending time working with clients on their strategic thinking. And believe it or not, as accountants, we still need to have business advisors to help us with our business. So before we get into the 8 pillars, it's coming, I promise, I do want to take a moment to define growth. And the traditional
Hello, Jeff. Are you there? I think we lost your audio. Hello, Jeff. If anyone would please put in the chat box if they can hear Jeff, would you please put a Jeff in the chat box? If you can hear me, would you please put Tad in the chat box?
We work more hours ourselves. Sorry?
There you go. I think we lost you for a little bit, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. What did you hear last?
I think, honestly, I wasn't listening. I'm sorry, I was doing something else. I think we're past this slide right here. I think you started on the other slide.
Okay. The good news is I do have this recorded as well, and we can share it with the audience. So if anybody misses something, let's blame it on Canadian internet. We just don't have the speeds you guys do. But
okay, well, I am getting reports that they did hear you. Maybe it was just me, so I apologize.
No problem. Okay, so the only way is to increase production, and that's by adding more hours to our day or by adding more staff. Again, not a bad thing, but there's obvious constraints. If your office space is at capacity, how do you add another body without, putting them in the file room? My personal bias when it comes to growth is focusing on efficiency and effectiveness and offering new services. So efficiency, just a little side note, I view efficiency as the simple act of doing something very well. You'll note that there's no distinction of what the something is. It's more about doing it well. So you've eliminated waste, you've figured out a really great process so that you can handle something quickly, easily, etc. Effectiveness, on the other hand, I think is far more important, and effectiveness, in my opinion, is doing the right thing. So you've actually given some thought to what the something is. And so, for example, effectiveness in an accounting firm, if you get paid to prepare a tax return, and on the other hand, you've got some casual conversations with your staff that you need to have, effectiveness in April in tax season, effectiveness would dictate that you focus on the tax returns, not the conversations. So combined, if you find first what's most effective, what you need to do to be effective, and then you make those parts of your practice efficient, you can grow dramatically without actually spending extra time and energy in the firm. It's sort of the Pareto principle of focusing 80% of your efforts on 20% of the results. Or sorry, 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So focus on those things that bring you the most results. And again, one of the 8 pillars is value-added services. So we'll talk about that down the road. So here we are, we're finally at the 8 pillars, and operational efficiency, I'll admit up front, probably gets a little bit more coverage in this introductory webinar than most. And the reason for that is operational efficiency, to me, is the key to success with the other pillars. If your operations are efficient, you've got things streamlined, you can handle unlimited growth. It's scalable, it's efficient, there's room to grow. If you're not very operationally efficient, I promise you, don't look at the other 7 pillars because they will crush you. I've worked with accounting firms time and time again. They want to focus on new clients or something else. They jump into that area, and effectively they're really just leveraging their own efficiencies, and you do not want leverage when it comes to inefficiency. I've divided out marketing and networking from sales. We'll talk about that. Niche development is an area I think a lot of accountants can learn a lot from. Value pricing, hot topic. I know Ronald Baker has been talking about it for years. I personally don't see a way forward in our profession unless we start to look more and more at value pricing. And the reason for that is actually Pillar 6, technology. We'll come to that in a little more detail. Next to last, we've got value-added services. Again, what else, based on our unique skill set, can we offer to our clients? And then last but not least, we've got practice management. I leave practice management till the end because basically it's taking a look at the 7 other pillars and really determining whether we're getting closer to our goals, getting further away from them, and really it's providing the areas that we need to tweak so that we can continue to improve. Now, before we jump into Pillar 1, one of the things I often have people taking away from these sessions is, and again, I check and test people for their comprehension and their thoughts. What they get is, oh my gosh, I have so many things to change. I need to go away and change all of this immediately. I can't stress it enough. I'll try to remember to say it again at the end. This is about incremental change. Incremental, not drastic. So pick one thing in your practice, work on it and improve it. Once you're comfortable with that, pick the next thing. If you're really excited and gung-ho and you want to do this, what I recommend to people is take a day off from the practice, shut the door, turn the phone off, sit down, and basically go through your entire practice, top to bottom, front to back. Think about what your challenges are, your struggles, and rank them according to priority. So what's the most desperate, urgent? What do you need to fix today to survive another day? All the way down to what are the little things that can be fixed eventually. So usually, once you go through that little exercise, 1 or 2 things will pop out that really need to be fixed. Everything else falls under the category of nice to have but not needed. So focus on the must-have, the key to survival. Use that to build a little bit of comfort and confidence. And I almost guarantee every accountant I've talked to thus far, I've literally spoken person to person, 1,000 accountants across North America in the last year. Every single one of them, they think they have problems in the other pillars. Almost always it comes back to operational efficiency. So without further ado, operational efficiency. Again, this one is my personal must-do, and the reason is if you don't have operational efficiency down pat, you're going to struggle with the other pillars. So very briefly, we want to talk about in this section, we're going to talk about digitization of data, going paperless. We're going to talk about project management, workflow automation, and then we're going to round out this section with staffing alternatives. And Tad, when we get to the end of Pillar 1, when I get to the Pillar 2 slide, we'll launch the poll, so that'll be about 5 minutes, just so everyone's ready for it.
Super.
Okay, digitization of data. This one, I think it's the one I have the most debate on. I get the most pushback from my accounting clients. And the reason for that is we're all comfortable with an old way of doing things, and that way of doing things involved having paper. Now, I'm going to give full disclosure. This is very open conversation. When I wrote both of my books, the first book I actually wrote the entire thing in paper form. Pen and paper, wrote the book, and the worst experience ever for me was trying to read my notes after the fact and turn that into a wonderfully published typed transcript, so a manuscript. So the second book, I deliberately forced myself to write digitally, and ironically, you know, the first time around I did it with pen and paper because that was the medium I was comfortable in. You know, it goes back to the days of writing lines in school. You know, we're used to that tactile experience. But what I found was the electronics experience was far more practical, it was more efficient, and it really made the writing process a lot easier. So again, when you look at digitizing data, there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of techniques out there, but the biggest thing I find people struggle with is that they just attempt, effectively, they try to eliminate the paper and then keep doing things the way they've always done them. What that effectively means is, again, you're taking old inefficiencies and trying to cram them into a new paradigm. Learn how to work paperless. Make sure your staff learn how to work paperless. You know, multiple monitors are key. You want to make sure you've got the ability to deal in an office without paper. Typically, I see a lot of accounting firms, they draw a line in the sand and they say, as of today, we're paperless, no more paper. And all they do, really, that's really the training the staff get. They take away the paper, and all of a sudden they find out that their very bizarre costs go up. Printing, paper, office supplies like that, and shredding. And the reason for that is if you arbitrarily take away the paper without giving people options, they'll just go back to doing things the way they did, which is printing the paper. They'll do what they have to on paper, convert that into the computer world, and then they shred the paper just to hide it. And so it builds this weird underground system of hidden paper. And ironically, it actually increases the paper because now you've got the person who prepares the file, they print everything out, and they're hoarding their little bits of paper. Then the person who reviews the file, they also print it out. You know, usually you have 2 or 3 people who touch a file, which means 2 or 3 people have effectively printed everything. So ironically, if you don't give guidance, you're going to cause a lot of increases to costs. Now, when you digitize data, it's an interesting thing. It's usually a personal struggle. It's a little bit of a challenge to go through the first time, but once you've learned how to do it, it's actually not that hard. And I say that partly tongue-in-cheek because I realize it's hard knocks. You've gone through, you've learned the lessons. Believe it or not, there's some great courses out there. You can learn from other people's mistakes instead of your own. I find that a lot cheaper. But once you've learned what works, why it doesn't, etc., it's actually really easy to do it again if you had to. So under value-added services, one of the things I would suggest is once you digitize your own data, start helping your clients digitize theirs. You've got a nice little consulting gig, you can earn extra fees from it, but the reality is if yourself and your clients are paperless, it really allows you to leverage technology and you can drastically improve operational efficiency. So digitization of data, I actually believe in a world where there's absolutely no paper associated with business. I've seen it happen. I know several accounting firms who've accomplished it. I can't recommend enough that you do a little research in this area. And because of the volume, I can't get into digitizing too much here. We will have subsequent events with CPE Think, and we'll cover those in detail. So we'll show you how to go through the process and convert your paper into digital and really streamline operations. The next part of digitization, I think it's very, very important. You need to have well-documented systems and processes in place. And, you know, I think it's interesting. I go back to my days when I was looking at the training and the education. When we went out to a client's, we would walk through their systems and processes. We would document key things, and yet majority of accounting firms that I work with, and typically this is the 1 to 5 partner under 20, the majority of them, everything is in somebody's head. Training is random. You know, everybody sort of knows how to do a file, put together a file, but the reality is it's almost inevitable with multiple partners. Staff have to learn multiple ways of doing things. I personally trained in a 3-partner firm, and I knew that each of the 3 partners had a unique way of what they expected. I got very frustrated because if you forgot whose file it was, you had to make sure you followed the criteria, or worse, every now and then the partners would juggle their clients, and effectively we'd have to redo the file last year into the new partner's perspective. It was very inefficient. So what I recommend when I work with firms is leverage some of the technology that's out there, and again, these are topics I'll cover in detail in subsequent conversations. Leverage technology to document your systems and processes, and once you get to that point, start to implement some of the cloud-based services out there. There's some things I think, you know, it's fairly common across the board. We can look at things like Wave Accounting, Xero, FreshBooks, Cashew, QuickBooks Online. If I've forgotten one, forgive me. There's a bunch of them coming out, but a lot of them allow you to, they're built on the concept, the premise of paperless, so a lot of them allow you to leverage your client data a lot faster. Now, number 4, outsource tasks. They lock themselves in the dark. They lock themselves in the dark and get the work done. My 2 cents would be get rid of all the little things that shouldn't be on your plate and focus on what your core competency should be. So as I'm going to call you the CEO of your accounting business. As the CEO, you need to make sure the right people are doing the right jobs. I've made this mistake in my practice. You have highly paid, highly skilled accountants taking time to sit down with clients and go through paperwork that maybe a receptionist could do. You know, you wouldn't do your own legal work, send that out to a lawyer. IT work, hire somebody out external to your company and pay them. Effectively eliminate where you can. And again, we'll talk about that. The last thing I find in digitization of data, and this is more of a, let's call it a benefit, it allows for telecommuting. And I call this a strategic initiative for a very specific reason. First, I'll define telecommuting, and that's effectively being able to work from anywhere at any time. And being paperless allows you to have access to all of your data, all of your client records, everything, so that, you know, for example, if you're on vacation, before the internet was a big thing in accounting, if I went on vacation, somebody would track me down via cell or contact number or whatever. They'd tell me there was a problem, and then I'd stew about it until I got back and could deal with it. Now with technology, I can go online, I can see what the problem is, offer a solution, go back to my vacation, and forget that it even ever happened. With the right tools and the right staff, you can actually use telecommuting as a strategic initiative. The biggest one is hiring staff outside of your local area. I've worked with a few accountants in rural areas. They can't find local staff just because, quite frankly, there aren't any. In this case, they can hire from neighboring towns, cities, etc., and the staff don't physically have to be in the office. I went after telecommuting strictly selfishly. I hate being chained to an office, so telecommuting allows me to work anytime, anywhere, and I'm not confined to an office or, wait till Monday, I'll deal with it. If something comes up, I need it, I can deal with it now and it's done. Project management really isn't as mystical and magical as it sounds. I think all accountants, we try to do this. Some succeed, some don't. But the reality is everything we do should have a consistent process. Clients bring us information, so we gather data, we do something with it, we process it, we have a quality control, some sort of review, and then we deliver that to the client. So right there, I see this not necessarily as a given, but I see it in my world as a 4-step process. And basically what we do is we manage each of those 4 steps so that it's done consistently from client to client. How do we encourage clients to bring in paperwork? How do we track that paperwork? How do we make sure that the paperwork is complete? Basically, it's just having an extension of, we all have checklists, we all have some thoughts in our head, here's how we do things. What I've looked at is just using project management software to actually track where each client is in a certain stage. And there's technical practice management software out there that does this specifically. The reason I've picked these 3 is they're all cloud-based and they're really easy to use, really easy to implement. Pro Workflow is my project management tool of choice. I use it for all of my internal projects. I use it for my books, my courses, everything. And what it does is it allows me to track deadlines, share those deadlines with clients, so clients know very quickly if they're the ones causing the delay. We keep them on track, which keeps us on track. Zoho CRM, it's specifically meant to be a customer relationship management software. I love it because it's cloud-based, it's very reasonably priced. I think last time I checked, the first 3 users were free. It's got a little bit of a task project management aspect to it. It takes a little bit of effort to figure it out because it wasn't specifically created for project management, but I've done a course on it and believe me, it works very well if you set it up properly from the beginning. And Asana is another one. It's very lightweight, easy to use. Great way to keep all of those, emails, is this file done? You can eliminate the email and just have it all within one system. With most of these, you can attach documents, you can, have reminders, you can let the system follow up for you, and as a manager, you can just at a high level take a look and see where everything is at, what deadlines are urgent, you can do a little bit of prioritization. Now, as I mentioned when I talked about project management, briefly I touched on workflow, and again, work comes in, we do something with it, we do quality control, we send it out. I would propose, again, every client is unique. We have to make sure we do that, we're aware of that. Every client is unique, but the way we handle that can and should be automated very specifically. So have checklists for everything, and I've got some typical areas you want to look at on the screen, but we want to make sure we're tracking our workflow automation. Now we'll cover staffing alternatives. I've got some homework for you, and then we'll launch the poll. So the staffing alternatives, I go from high to low in terms of cost, and the reality is, which is the best model? It depends. Sorry, I warned you that's probably going to be an answer at least once today. Traditional model, we all know it. We've got an office, we've got bodies. There's one body per desk. Everybody has a computer, very high overhead, but you've got more control of your team. So there's trade-offs. Telecommuting model, you can leverage the desks. So you might be able to have 2 or 3 people per desk. The idea being that the other bodies aren't, if they're not working at the office, they're working from home, they're working from a client, and they can share space. So it reduces your overhead. Outsourcing, again, you can either, I have some firms that do it with great success with local stay-at-home moms who do the work for them. Or there's the big traditional outsourcing, bundle your files up and send them over to India. There's pros and cons to each. I only bring it up because it reduces your overhead. It's a great way to smooth out demand in peak periods. So my clients, a lot of them use it in the tax season just to cover that, reduce overhead, reduce overtime. The virtual model, I see, it's my personal favorite, and what I'll say here is it's best for people who are starting up, don't have an office space, don't have staff, or it's really good for people who are looking at retiring, slowing down, but they don't want to quit. So a virtual model, it's just using virtual office space, using some great cloud technology, and effectively you have very little overhead. Your overhead is effectively hourly rates for meeting rooms, your internet connection, and then your software. So you've eliminated the staff, you've eliminated everything. So basically in a virtual model, and that's what I do with my personal practice, it's 100% virtual. My monthly overhead is about 2% of my billings, so very easily managed. The hybrid model, last one, take the best of each. So if you've got staff that you love, they've been around forever, you've got office space with a lease, probably the traditional model is the best model for you. Not necessarily, but probably. You can leverage that model if you suddenly have peaks in demand. You can bring in some outsourcing. You can have a second location in another city, use a virtual instead of a physical presence. Okay. I'm very much an educator, teacher. I believe we should all have homework. The homework for Pillar 1 is take a look at your business, think about what keeps you awake at night, what are your pain points, and commit to making a change in how you run your business. If you want more information on going paperless, the best resource I've found thus far is a book called Quantum of Paperless, written by Roman Kepchuk. And it's, I believe, 70, 80 pages. It's not a massive book. It's really just a checklist for best practices, and he surveys the top 500. Well worth the read. And then last but not least, take a look at your business, identify areas you could improve. Personally, I like to tackle the big issues that need to be solved. What I find is some people prefer to start with the little ones first, pick the low-hanging fruit to build momentum. So Tad, if you could, we'll launch the first of the polling questions.
Okay, here we go. How do you currently attract clients? Pick one, please. New clients, excuse me. We're going to give everybody a few seconds to do this. This is really quick. We're just going to be in and out on it. Okay, we got about 3/4 have voted. If the rest of you would jump in here and do that, please. And please understand and remember, this is how NASBA tells that you are watching. It's recorded, but your answers are not recorded. It's just recorded whether you answered the poll or not. So far, in the 10 years we've been doing this, we've never been audited on this, so I wouldn't worry a whole lot about it, but I do want to let you know that. Okay. We've got about 85% voted. Give it another 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's close the poll and we'll share. Okay, and there you go. 82% word of mouth. Next highest is website.
Okay, great. Well, that's a good timing. Now, I'll point out we're about, by my watch, about 40 minutes in. The next 7 pillars, believe it or not, I'm going to cover in about 10 minutes. So everybody sit back, hold on. It does seem rushed, but the reality is I can't stress enough how important operational efficiency is. The other pillars, honestly, if you take anything away from it, learn that it's important, it's something you should do, and start looking at it. It's very personal. It depends on what your results are, what your goals are. I will cover them very quickly, but again, each of these could and will be an hour-long presentation in themselves. So with that said, we'll go through the next couple of pillars, and then I'll get Tad to launch the next polling question. Marketing and networking, I've separated that from sales, and the reason is they're two very separate activities. Any business that's truly successful recognizes this. Unfortunately, I think a lot of accountants, myself included, we're uncomfortable with the concept, so we just ignore it, and we sort of go by the old adage, I hang my shingle, I do good work, people will reward me by bringing me business. Great concept, it worked once upon a time, but the reality is I think we're seeing a shift from clients who make or produce goods into now we're seeing a digital transition where clients are more selling ideas and thoughts. And so I think they're looking for more guidance from us. The millennials are definitely challenging. But again, marketing, digress very quickly, marketing is about drawing attention to the firm, getting people talking about it, getting them interested enough to the point where they will reach out and contact us. At that point, I think sales kicks in. So marketing, I personally don't like media and print advertising, not a big fan of signage and brochures. I don't find that they get a lot of results. The biggest problem with media, for example, is it's mass media. You're broadcasting your message to an entire audience, and you hope that enough of that audience responds to cover your cost. Personally, I've built, and I help my clients build their practices really on word of mouth. Now, that's not an old, it's an old idea, but it's new as well. How do you leverage, typically a lot of us, we count on referrals from our clients. We never stop to deliberately ask for them. So what I typically do when I work with my clients, we create networking events, educational events, and we wrap that around social media so that we're deliberately sharing things with our clients at we weren't talking about crazy things, we were just talking about here's business, here's concept of cash flow, budgeting, etc. Again, there's some great ways out there. What I would suggest is create a marketing plan for your firm and figure out who you want to go after and how you're going to reach them. If you can create a very clear picture of what your ideal client looks like, for example, dentists in the Colorado area who specialize in pediatrics. Very specific niche. I guarantee those are easy to find. You can pick up the phone book. You can reach out to them directly. The clearer your picture is as to who your ideal client is, the better your results will be. And again, at this point, I would suggest taking a look at a good customer relationship management solution. Use that, something like Zoho CRM. use that to keep track of your marketing efforts so that you actually know what results you're getting and from where. Sales is probably the pillar I think that accountants struggle with the most. This is getting those interested parties and prospects to sign up and actually become clients. More importantly, in my opinion, it's getting existing clients to buy more of your services, to reach out and actually engage more and get more value out of your firm. The more value you deliver, the more you can charge them. Two of the tools I've used very successfully with sales, Profit Sense, it's basically a financial ratio analysis, great tool, and what it does is it allows you to have a conversation with clients about their business. Plan Guru is more about, specifically, it's financial forecasting. So Profit Sense tells what is, Plan Guru tells what could be. And what I do, I love cash flow conversations because it almost always leads into something else. Typically, cash flow is caused by, inefficiencies in inventory, issues with receivables, issues with payables. So, in my opinion, those all become future conversations, future projects. So take a look at your firm and find areas of expertise that you or your staff might have, and think about how you could create a value-added service for your clients. The other thing I would suggest, look at some sort of process. Your sales process should be consistent. You should have a here's how we do things here sort of concept. I personally have used Sandler sales training or another product called Sell Without Selling, and both of them teach people in a firm how to sell your services. And again, look at staff strengths, look at weaknesses, and figure out a training or cross-training schedule so that you can offer these value-added services. Okay. Niche development, arguably it falls under marketing or it falls under sales. I personally believe it's so important it needs to be kept separate. Now my comment about the traditional word of mouth is it's random and haphazard and we get what we get. Typically it lends itself to a very generalist practice, and our clients effectively shape the firm. They bring us their referrals, we're grateful for them, and we service that client whatever they happen to be. So today we might be dealing with a plumber, tomorrow we're dealing with a beautician, etc., etc. I personally believe with a niche you can bill more because you're specializing, you're focused, and it's more efficient because when you deal as a generalist, you've got to research issues for each industry as they arise. Whereas I know, for example, there is an accounting firm or two in my local area that focuses specifically on dentists. All they know is the dental industry. They know all the software, they know all the issues, they know all the products, they know what the ratio should be, they're experts. And one firm in particular, they used to charge their average annual fee for a dentist client was $2,000 a year. They now charge somewhere closer to $20,000, and because they're specialists, they've provided this expertise, they are the de facto dentist's referral partner of choice. Now the good thing about being a niche and focusing on dentists is dentists know other dentists, therefore referrals tend to be other dentists. Again, it's leveraging the strength of word of mouth without the inefficiency of being general. So have a very clear picture of who your ideal client is, and your way to reach those clients is going to be through things like industry magazines, trade associations, annual conferences. The great thing about a niche, if you can define it very clearly, those people gather in numbers at least once a year. They all know one another, so the better you can define your niche, once you access it and tap into that niche, then you can grow and grow. And in my second book on 8 Pillars for Accountants, actually have a step-by-step example on how to build a dental niche. And it's amazing. Very few people have followed this, but if you do build a niche, it's very easy. And literally, you create a little funnel where your clients just automatically appear as you need them. So I know we're all generalists. I know we love the variety of work, but if we're looking at being profitable and growing without working more, focus on a specific niche, something you're passionate about, whether it's a hobby, a business you're interested in. Take a look at your current practice. You might actually have a few clients already in one industry. Maybe that's a niche you want to develop. Take a look at your practice. You might want to be able to grow through a niche and very clearly, at the very least, define your ideal client. Now, Tad, let's go ahead and launch the second polling question.
Okie dokie. Here we go. Are you paperless? Be honest. Okay, about 3/4 have voted. All right, 85%. Give it another 6-7 seconds. The last few of you would please vote. Just click one. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we will close and share the poll. Okay. Thank you very much. And Jeff, back to you.
Okay, and what did we get for results, Tad?
Oh, I am sorry. I didn't leave it up there very long. 70% said partially, 18% said not at all.
Okay.
And then the rest were spread out a few percentage points, 5 and 8%.
Which is fairly common, typical of what I see in my audience. So the good news is there's lots of room for growth and efficiency on that side. Pillar 5, value pricing, I really can't get into it in enough detail. All I can tell you is that absolutely it is critical to survival as an accountant. And really I'll put it in terms we can all relate to. Hours times rate equals fee. That's the model we've built our practices on. And the reality is if we stop and think about it for one moment, Firm A, which adopts technology, figures out how to do things twice as fast as Firm B, they're penalized because effectively they're only earning half the fees that Firm B will now because they've cut their hours in half. So my comment is that the value of the outcome, what the client values, has nothing to do with our time and effort, everything to do with what we produce. The great thing is if we look at technology, there's some amazing ways to leverage time so that we can spend our time focusing on the high value things as opposed to the day-to-day, data entry and processing. I call tax and compliance work commodity work. The reason is there's very little loyalty in that. It's very fee sensitive. So what I would strongly suggest, I'm a big fan of Ron Baker. He's written several books. They're all listed here. Definitely worth a read. He gets into the economic theory of value pricing, step by step how to implement. But for those of you who want a quick fix, want to get through it very quickly, I'm a big fan of a book called Breaking the Time Barrier. It's a little ebook. You can download it for free. All they ask is if you like it, you get value, go back and pay them what you think it was worth. So true value billing, value pricing, and once you understand the importance of it, create a plan to actually implement. Technology I'm going to breeze through because this is something that's unique to everybody. We'll talk a little bit about cloud solutions. So basically the cloud, it's servers out there that we all access. The servers do the processing as opposed to the physical computer in front of you. Common examples and what you want to look for, banking, everybody does online banking. We book reservations for cars, hotels, airfare. All of those are cloud solutions. What we can find with cloud is typically there's lower upfront costs. You typically pay per user per month. So you never own the software, you're effectively licensing it, but it also means you're never worrying about version control. They're responsible for downtime. And what it means is the more virtual you can be, the more you can reduce your physical costs, maintaining a physical server in-house, to the point where if you're like me and you get to this, you can actually remove the physical server completely. So there's a lot of great technology out there. They all serve different purposes. We'll talk about that in subsequent events. What I would suggest is take a look at your IT plan and think about which of the services you have. If you've got equipment that needs to be replaced, look at cloud solutions that can help you eliminate the need for that big expense. And something I've done that's worked very well is encourage cloud conversations with the clients. If you've got a niche, that's really powerful because you can find what's going on, what their concerns are, and you get to know the technology, which gives you, we'll roll into value-added services, gives you the opportunity to provide some information systems, guidance to the clients. The key to value-added services is, number one, you need to be very clear and understand what's applicable to your professional designation. You know, there's certain requirements that are unique to each. But cash flow, that's always been my golden area. It's easy. You can have a conversation. You can show them what they need to be doing. Give them a checklist on best practices for cash flow management. There's tons of lists out there, top 10 things businesses can do to improve cash flow. Share that. It becomes, if they come to you, they're stuck, they'll make sure they'll come to you for advice rather than just figuring it out themselves. So cash flow is, if you do nothing else, great starting point. It can lead to quarterly updates. You can charge for that. You can do some business mentoring. There's a lot that you can do. And again, this is built on, start with existing skills within the firm. If you're good at something, you really like it, consider it being a specialization. Focus on that. And if you've got local professionals who offer complementary services, work with them on projects if you don't necessarily have the skills for it. So you can be the project manager instead of the actual doer. Okay, last pillar. Before I get into it, let's launch the final poll in question.
Okay, let's do that right here. KPIs, key performance indicators, which ones do you use? And you can check more than one here, as many as you need. Okay, we got about almost half voted, so if you would please check a few, check one. Okay, we just hit 80%. As soon as we get up to 90, I will close it. Give it about 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and we will share the results. Customer satisfaction, that is excellent, guys. Really, I mean, the fact that 3/4 of you are doing that, I think is great.
Now, probably in hindsight, it would have been better to define it before we asked the question.
Yes, it would have.
Practice management is really about managing your practice as a business. So the first thing is looking at critical success factors. What are the core functions that your business needs to do well in order to survive? customers, good customers. I work with my accounting firm clients. We rank their clients, and we typically fire I call them D clients, and those are the clients that really take up a lot of your time. They're not very profitable. It sounds counterintuitive, but the only way you can truly grow is to trim the dead weight so that your practice can go forward. And again, it's amazing if you've got the right KPIs, if you look at your numbers, you'll often find that your best customers subsidize your bad ones. So why not get rid of the bad ones? And in a lot of cases, you'll find you're actually more profitable with fewer clients, but then use that space you've created in order to find new clients that are ideal for your firm. So homework for this section, create your critical success factors. I would recommend doing that with your entire team. What do you need to do to succeed? Create some key performance indicators. Less is more. Just come up with 3 or 4 that measure where you want your firm to go. And the biggest piece of homework, the hardest one, but the most rewarding, find your most problematic client, one that everybody in your firm doesn't like to deal with. They're not profitable, they're whiny, they're annoying. Fire them. That's a test. If you can get rid of one client, that will free you up for room to grow. So that's the 8 pillars. Whirlwind tour, and I apologize, we try to fit it in an hour. It's definitely doable, but it's a grueling pace. So as I mentioned, each of these pillars we'll cover in a 1-hour webinar where it'll be relaxed and a little less rushed. We're going to have a special offer, and what I'm offering for participants on this webinar is if you go to businessevolutioneducation.com, we've got a link on the screen and in the slides. Will be a spot. Don't go there, it's not live yet. It'll be live in another hour. If you go there, everybody who attended today, I'm giving you a copy of my second book, 8 Pillars for Exponential Business Growth, the Accountant's Edition, and it's pre-publication, so it's an ebook. Again, it'll give you a little bit of insight into the pillars as we look at future webinars. So don't be shy, come and sign up, you'll get your free copy. And if you have any follow-up questions, my email is jeff@dreampractice.ca. So with that, I will thank you for your time and attention, and Tad, I'll open it to questions.
Okay, gang, I know we're just a few minutes over, but if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat box or the question box, and we will get to them. I did put the link in there. As Jeff said, the link is not live yet. Give it about an hour, and then you can go there and check it out, the book. And while I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants the slides for this, just go to our website, click Take Course, and then you can print the PDF version or take the PDF version of the course, and that should be the 2-slide per page version. You can start the course and go through it. About the 4th page in, we have a link for the 2-page and the 2-slide and 3-slide version of the PDF. Okay, I have a question here. What is the best way to fire a client? Good question.
That's a great question. Somebody's thinking on the right channel. Honestly, the best way depends on how much pain you want. The easiest way to fire a client is to sit them down and say, you know, we're no longer focusing on this particular niche. Here's 3 other accountants I'd recommend. Please go check them out. That's simple, painless. You have to be very clear on it that there is no negotiation, no revisit. It's done. It's kind of like breaking up with somebody. You need to be clear on, you know, it's over. You can say it's not you, it's me, whatever you need to. My personal favorite, I don't mind a little bit of heat, so I'll bill them until I like them or until they go away. So if a client really annoys me, the simple way to get rid of them, send them a letter saying, dear client, your fees, because we have to cover this, this, and this, your fees are going up 50%. In the next 6 months, we'll revisit again, but going forward, here's what it's going to cost you to continue the relationship. Most of the time, you do that once or twice. I had one client, we had to do that. We did it quarterly, so we raised his fees 30% every quarter. It took 7 raises before he finally said, you're too expensive. So you have to be prepared with that. Sometimes they'll stick around. The other, it's very easy. You can sit them down. The more pain involved in this, and say, look, we're not a good fit. We seem to be disappointing you, rather than, continuing a bad relationship, we'd like to just end it. So there's different ways to do it. Personally, I find great satisfaction in the raise the fees. The downside to that particular one is you find out how underpaid you've been all along, because we typically don't raise fees enough.
Okay. Did that get your question, Terry? Okay, great. Yes. All right. Any other questions, gang? Again, to get your certificate of completion, just go on to your My Courses page on our website. You have to take the final exam. It's only one question. The question's already answered for you. You just have to go through it and grade it for our site to generate the certificate of completion. Okay, I got a couple of thank yous coming in. You're very welcome. Really appreciate you guys hanging with us after yesterday. We will be going or be using GoToWebinar from this point forward. It is just stable, and we're just going to have to deal with the replays. We will set up some facility for replays so that everyone can watch this again if they would like. It will probably be in your course within 48 hours. Again, any questions at all, please feel free to email us. And if you have a question for Jeff, we will get that over to him. It's service@cpethink.com, or you can see on the screen there, Jeff just put it up, jeff@dreampractice.ca. Make sure you get the CA. He's in Canada. And also, real quick, if anybody is still here, still about half of you, or more than half of you are still here, how many would like to see more webinars on the pillars? If you could, real quick, give me a show of hands. Just like to have some kind of idea. Is there some interest in this? Okay, good. Hands popping up. Great. We will look at that, and we will let everyone know about that going forward. So, Jeff, that's really about all I have. Anybody else have any questions? Getting a lot of thank yous. We really appreciate it, gang, and much better webinar than yesterday. Absolutely, Mary Kay. Anything else, Jeff, that you have?
That's all I have. All I would say is good luck in growth, and I look forward to seeing everyone on future webinars.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, gang, and we will see you again. Bye.
Thanks, Dad.